one of his students, Agnes Osman, was suddenly filled with the Holy Spirit and began speaking in tongues. Here is a copy of the Chinese that she wrote, and he is shocked by what he sees. You're now watching a snippet from a previous video. Check the description for the full thing. Just over 20 years later, we're now in the middle of the Azusa Street revival, and we have the two fathers of Pentecostalism, and they can't agree on what tongues are. To explain this situation though, we need to go back 5 years to 1901. By this time, Charles Parham has been studying the scriptures by himself, of course, and he has come to the understanding that tongues is the sign of being filled with the Holy Spirit. He was the first person to teach that you haven't been baptized in the Spirit if you can't speak in tongues. Again, a new doctrine coming almost 1900 years after the birth of the church. And Charles Parham is the main reason why this belief is so common among Pentecostals today. As a pioneer for this belief, he went around promoting it and teaching it to his students, even though he himself couldn't speak in tongues. After an evening of prayer on New Year's Day, 1901, one of his students, Agnes Osman, was suddenly filled with the Holy Spirit and began speaking in tongues. She could no longer write or speak English, and she could only speak and write in Chinese. And she was the first in the group to speak in tongues. Here is a copy of the Chinese that she wrote.
Got him! Got him!
Moving on, but he and the rest of the students got the same gift of speaking in tongues. But what's clear from Charles Parham's understanding is that tongues is a real, human, intelligible language. It's not an unknown language that sounds like gibberish to those who don't have the gift of interpretation. Then comes William J. Seymour, who had learned from Parham that he needs to be baptized in the Spirit to then be able to speak in tongues. He gathered a group of people together and they started praying. And on Friday, the 9th of April, 1906, the first person in the group began to speak in tongues. Over the next 3 days, more and more people began speaking in tongues, and William himself began to speak in tongues on the 12th. Huge crowds were attracted to the gathering, with meetings running 24/7 and as many as 1,500 people attending daily for the best part of 3 years. Charles Parham decides to pay his one-time student a visit, and he is shocked by what he sees. First of all, he realizes the tongues of William J. Seymour aren't real languages. They are the unintelligible speech, the speech of angels. And he is horrified by this distortion of his teaching. He also notices these physical manifestations of people being in a trance and falling to the floor, or people acting like dogs and barking, and people physically shaking, rolling on the floor, laughing, crying, weeping. All of these signs that are acceptable within Pentecostalism today, Charles Parham, the pioneer, absolutely rejected them. Further to this, it definitely didn't help that Charles Parham was a segregationist. His idea of worship was white people on one side and black people on another side. But in the Azusa Street revival, there was intermingling and intermixing. He found not only the intermixing to be disordered and therefore not of God, but also the understanding of tongues. And along with all the physical behaviors that he was not used to, he got up on the pulpit and said God is disgusted with what is happening. And Charles Parham became one of the biggest critics of the Azusa Street revival. These two people, who are foundational to what charismaticism and Pentecostalism is today, they couldn't even agree on what tongues is and what baptism in the Spirit should look like. But now supposedly everyone's got it figured out that tongues is definitely an angelic language, something that Parham absolutely rejected. As I said, this understanding came only in 1906. It's less than 130 years old. But that's supposed to be the understanding of the one church for the first 400 years?